I have just completed reading Zodiac Academy Book 2, The Ruthless Fae, and yes, I did read the book in the new edition that is supposedly more updated and has extra bonus content, which makes sense because this book is a little over 600 pages long, whereas the original is a little over 530 pages. So we definitely have some level of added content in this book, so that is why I read this one. But as I said during my Zodiac Academy Book 1 The Awakening review, I definitely far prefer these covers because I think they're prettier. I like them more. So I'm going to go into my book review for Zodiac Academy Ruthless Fae, which is book 2. It's going to start off spoiler free and then go into spoilers because it is the second book in this series. So let's get into it. Because I like this cover more, I will be showing this cover during this review, but keep in mind I did read this version when I read Ruthless Fae. All right, let's just get straight to it. I would give this book 3.4 stars. If I remember correctly, Zodiac Academy Book 1, I think I gave 3 stars to. It was, an interesting read. It did get my attention. I knew that this would be a challenge and that I needed to keep reading, that the series is supposed to improve as you move along in the narrative. So the fact that this is 3.4 stars for book 2 does lend to it being a true statement that you need to keep going. At least so far, that is what I found to be the case. I think that the beginning of this book was awesome. I loved reading the first section of this book, probably the first 50 or 100 pages. I had a great time, a lot of laughs, and I really enjoyed it. This book is where you experience the heavy, heavy bullying, although I made a whole video on whether or not that is actually the proper term. Heavy, heavy sexual harassment occurs in this book. It is very extensive. Bullying doesn't feel quite appropriate because I don't think it carries enough of the weight of how badly our main characters are treated in this book. Book 2 is the revenge arc, and I was living for that part. I absolutely loved the first portion of this book. I thought the book ended really well also. I loved the last scene, if you will, of where we were in Zodiac Academy Book 2. I am definitely excited to pick up the next book, which is Book 3, The Reckoning, so I'm really excited to see where this goes. But a lot of the middle part kind of felt like, whatever. It's not bad, it's just not good. But it's not bad. Reading Zodiac Academy so far feels very much like eating junk food in front of watching like a sitcom TV series that you're not really paying attention to. It's entertaining, but there is literally no deeper message. There's no need for you to put any brain effort into reading a book like this. That's how I'm feeling so far about the series. Who knows as I progress further on, this is just book 2, but as I was reading it, that was very much the vibe I was getting. There's no deeper message. There's no greater lesson to be learned here. At least that's kind of how it feels. And it's, like I said, super easy to read. It's junk food. I can see why people say that it's a junk food story because it's so simple. Having just read books in the Cosmere where everything means something and there are ties to other things and other worlds that you don't even know about yet, I think the fact that this is a kind of mindless read works for me right now. I will say, when it comes to this series, if I had not impulse bought the entire Zodiac Academy series, because yes, that was a choice that I made a while ago for very situational reasons, but I do own literally every book in Zodiac Academy except for the most newest series with the Never something. Otherwise, I own literally everything for Zodiac Academy. If I didn't do that, if I hadn't impulse bought this series, I would stop. It's true. I wouldn't keep reading it. But since I own all the books, and because I'm not having a terrible time, it's fun, it's just not deep, and because I also have plenty of other books on my TBR that are going to be deeper, that are going to have a lot, more story in that way for me, I'm fine with continuing with Zodiac Academy. So, like I said, it starts amazing, it ends amazing. A lot of the stuff in the middle I just don't particularly care about. I love that we have a couple more viewpoints in this book than just our 2 main characters. I really enjoyed reading those other viewpoints. And I actually just kept trying to look for where's the next alternative viewpoint that we're going to get because it was fun to read those. So that was really enjoyable. I loved every aspect of revenge arc part that took place in this book. Everything that has to do with a romance, it just falls flat for me. It feels just like, whatever. But this story starts delving more into the world of Zodiac Academy, and that's what I feel most interested. I'm really curious to see how the world part is going to progress, where the story is going to go beyond just the romances that I genuinely don't care about. But I'm really curious about the other things. I know this is a dark romance academia thing, and I don't care about the romance at all, so we'll see how far I get into this series, to be completely honest. But at least right now, I'm entertained, and it's fine. I will say, when it comes to the sexual harassment part, there is a bit of it in this book, nowhere near the amount from book 1. So that makes it also easier to read, and it's probably why I also rated Zodiac Academy Book 2 a little bit higher than Book 1. One thing that's really interesting about these books is the timing, how long it takes through these books. I don't know. This book was like 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. I think this one is also 1 or 2 weeks long, maybe 3. at this point between these two books, I feel like we're maybe like a month into school, a month and a half into school, and yet the reckoning is literally right around the corner. And I'm just like, is the reckoning going to happen? What part of this book does the reckoning happen? That I'm really curious about, because I thought that this was going to be a little bit later, but I guess we're just bulldozing straight to the reckoning. So overall, spicy wise, in some ways, this book is less spicy compared to book one if you are relating the word spice to sexual harassment, which I wouldn't recommend. But this is more of the fawning over the boys, I guess, than this one does. But this one actually has an explicit sex scene in it in a way that this one does not. So I don't know how I would compare the spice rating on this, because like I said, this one is a lot more of the, oh, he's so hot, excessively describing muscles. I don't care. But that came out like a ton in this book. This one had a lot more, like I said, of the revenge, a lot more of other stories which were interesting. But we do have a full sex scene, and it's described beginning to end. So that is in this book. All right, let's go into the spoilery part of this review. I'm not going to go heavy into it, but I'll just point out a couple things from book 2. So if you don't want to listen to the spoiler part, now is the time to leave this video. Thank you for attending. Okay, my least favorite part of Zodiac Academy book 2 was the party scene at Darius's house. I just felt like it was useless, to be completely honest. I loved the moment when Tori met Xavier, Darius's brother. That was a sweet little moment. So short. Please give us more. I want so much more from Xavier's story, and I'm sure it will come up throughout the rest of the series, but I care about that character. It means something. He means something. But Tori, honestly, it was annoying to read the heavy drinking and the lack of having food in her system, and it was something we're looking at, mainly Tori, but both Tori and Darcy. They've gone into the Viper's Nest. They know they're surrounded by a bunch of people who hate them and kind of want them dead. And they seem to have no sense of self-preservation, no sense of maybe I should attempt to be cognitively present. It was just frustrating to read. And then Tori going and sleeping with Caleb, it was like right after the whole mess that she had with Darius and his father, it just, what really came to me during that whole part that was frustrating was I feel like this story is exemplifying the Fae nature, that Fae are impulsive, that Fae are selfish, that Fae are horny all the time, without really pointing enough to this being a Fae characteristic. I think an interesting comparison to this would be the Modern Fairy Tale series by Holly Black. I'm not going to go into spoilers there, but that first trilogy, the main character is Fae. And the way that she's written, you feel her Fae-ness. There's no confusion. She's not human, and we're not getting a sense of her being human. So when she acts in a Fae way, it just works. In those books, I don't know, it just made sense so that I wasn't annoyed at her Fae-ness because it was part of who she was. When it comes to the Fae-ness of Tori and Darcy, it's not, the way it's written just doesn't lend to it being about their Fae nature, even though that would be why they're so impulsive and drawn to drinking and drawn to foolish decisions and whatever, like, especially at the party scene. I feel like I read the whole thing, Darcy off with Orion. I didn't care. I'm sorry. I just didn't care. I was like, can we get to the fact that they are threats to the throne? Can we get back to the fact that they don't have enough, mastery over their magic, that they're in the lion's den, that this is not a good situation? Can we get back to that narrative? Because the romance is boring. I'm so sorry. I just don't care. And disclaimer, I am demisexual, heavily leaning asexual. But if I took anything out of my previous read of Heated Rivalry, if romance is written well, romance can be very much enjoyed by me. I just don't think the romance is written well here. I'm curious about the world. I'm excited about this whole, the nymphs have declared war. That's really interesting. I'm excited about their magic. What are Darcy and Tori with regards to their transformed form? Like, I'm so curious where that's going. I'm curious about this world of Celeria. I'm curious about the politics. Like, I think there's an interesting world here that's being built, and the romance is distracting and annoying, to be completely honest. Luckily, it doesn't take up a ton of space in this book. I absolutely love the revenge. I think it's wonderful and fabulous. I love Tori becoming an arsonist. At the beginning of the book, I was like, yes, girl, burn, baby, burn. Like, burn it to the ground. Like, I just loved that. I just thought it was hilarious. I thought it worked for her character, and it made her seem active, proactive in her life, rather than in book 1, just kind of fumbling always in and very much in the role of I don't care that I'm a victim kind of portrayal. This one took on the, no, I'm a survivor and I'm going to take revenge. Loved that. Loved it. So every time they took revenge on one of the characters, I loved it. I thought it was fabulous. I thought that the pitball game at the end was very interesting and entertaining to read. I loved reading from the boys' perspectives as they're talking about this sport, their frustrations, their angers, all of that. It just felt more real. It felt more attached to emotions I could understand and just meant more in this world, even though it was a game. it just feels like it means more than the party scene with Darcy making out with Orion at the bottom of the pool. I just don't care. But Orion, you know, having this internal identity difficulty about never having been able to succeed in pitball professionally, and so he's leading this team and they're failing against a other team that should be easy to beat. I loved reading that complexity. I loved reading that challenge for Orion. That is where we started to get to something interesting. I loved the battle scene with the nymphs at the end. That was fascinating and really interesting. I will say, like, I have my suspicions about certain characters and where certain things are going to go, but also I don't know. I'm not 100% certain. So like I said, I'm coming out of this and it's an okay story. It's okay and mildly entertaining, enough so that I'll continue to read it because I own the entire series. That's really where I'm coming with regards to this book. So anyways, I am, like I said, going to continue with Zodiac Academy, The Reckoning. And yes, I do own The Reckoning in the new edition. And yes, it is longer. I think this one is like 700 pages or something, whereas the original is a little over 630 pages. So I definitely want the full story, which is why I'm going to be reading this version. And this is what's coming next. And I'm curious where the story's going to go. I am going to need to take a break after these first 3 books because I think I'm getting ready to, please can we read something with a little bit more depth and meaning. I'm so curious if this will have any more depth and meaning to it. I'm really, really curious, but also not like terribly hopeful either. So that is my book review for Zodiac Academy, Ruthless Fae. Keep reading what you love, and I will see you next time.